We'll be speaking to former Government Minister Christine Newallo Hossain. Pleasant good evening.
Hi, good evening. Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
To you, Mikey, and to all our listeners.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's a pleasure having you on as always. And I hope all is well with you. And season's greetings to you and your entire family.
Season's greetings to you too as well.
Okay. Former government minister, former minister of the people and social development. And so when we heard this announcement by the Minister of Education, Dr. Gadsby Dolly, said that her ministry was committed to not only upgrading the physical infrastructure of schools, but also initiating measures to enhance the academic performance of students. And of course, instead of these unruly students, according to what they're saying, that are taking away time and consuming time from teachers, they will instead be enrolled in the military-led academic training MILAT, a program through a mandatory policy to cut down on indiscipline while ensuring learning objectives are met. What say you on this? I mean, because let's be honest, the average citizen hears that and say, okay, that sounds like something to occupy their time, something for them to do. They won't have to be in school. They won't have to be, idle hands causing mischief. But what say you weighing in on this issue?
Well, first of all, Mikey, the question is what does the Ministry of Education have in place? What syllabus do they have in place to offer to the students who have evolved over the years, the technology that they're utilizing, the programs, the systems? What is it that they're teaching that is really applicable for learning today? And the question is that they haven't done much. It's the same methodology that, it's outdated. And we are way back in terms of education and where children are at learning. They're at home with tablets and these different devices. And when they come into schools, you're giving them, you're taking them back to the dark ages to begin to learn. So you really don't have their attention as you would normally have if they were at home or in another atmosphere. Learning, because they have the ability to learn. They just don't have the aptitude simply because they don't have the resources, the opportunities.
Well, but I understand that. And perhaps one could look at it as putting a Band-Aid on cancer and hoping that this is going to do something. There are some concerns that many of these young people may simply be caught up in a system where, in fact, that they, that's it. They're just pushed to the side, they're in a program, they're out of the hands of the teachers, they were too indisciplined for their parents to take care of them. So, out of sight, out of mind. But at the same time, you are correct in the fact that when you look at the global market, and as things are always evolving, where are these young people going to be? How are they going to fit into the equation as far as moving Trinidad and Tobago forward and being able to compete on that global market?
Absolutely. I know this is why I was a little bit, as I said in my release, that I was dismayed at the things that the minister said, because it sounded more of a threat than an intervention. And I think that an intervention is necessary. A threat is where you want to inflict pain. You want to inflict some sort of punishment on someone. Whereas, these children are already punished. They, in terms of they know that they're isolated. They know that they're doing things that are causing pain to others, and they need help. They need help. They need intervention. Their homes need help, and this is where I was asking, where the deans, where the truancy officers, so that you could do something long before this happens. Parents are faced with economic challenges. They're faced with a number of they're not even parents. When I say they may be a parent in terms of giving birth, but in terms of being able to understand what parenting is, they don't. And therefore, we ought to look at how can we help them, because in the end, if we don't assist in some way, if we don't put policies in place, if we don't implement systems in place to be able to help the home, the whole, look at it from a holistic approach as opposed to just dealing with the child, you're not solving anything. There are other children in the home who will be left behind. And as far as I'm concerned, our policy should be no child should be left behind. But the government minister has already indicated that there is in place that there's a child who's beyond help. How can we say that? You have already given up on a child. We don't give up on a child. We don't give up on the most important currency of any society. You get rid of a child and what happens? You lose a generation. You lose generations if you do that. And so I don't think that the minister has thought out her strategy carefully. I don't think she's in contact with her colleagues in terms of the other ministries and working it out holistically. How can all the ministries come together to find a way to bring about a stakeholders' understanding of how we approach this?
Yeah, and I understand your point quite clearly. But one has to look at it from the fact that based on our society and the way perhaps we function as part of our culture, again, it goes back to outer sight, outer mind. It's been a problem here. We simply shift it somewhere and hope for whatever reason we don't have to deal with it again. But this is going to be a system where, again, what's going to happen? What's the assessment? What is the syllabus? What is the criteria that qualifies or would say that you want to brandish one of these children as so indisciplined that they become a part of this program and they're out of the classroom? The minister said that, pointing out that school officials were usually hesitant to expel students. In a lot of cases, principals may not want to go to the distance of the process of suspension or applying for extended suspension and bringing it to the fore so that there's a record of behavior and what have you. So they're a bit hesitant. But now it seems mandatory. If it is that you can function within the classroom, then you go into this program. But again, it plays right into who we are as a people, as a culture. There are people who are looking in and say, listen, these young people don't respect their mother. There may be absent fathers. They simply do not want to learn. They do not want to grow. And you believe there should have been a process to make that assessment better before coming to this conclusion?
Absolutely. First of all, how can you make the assessment? Teachers are not qualified to make that assessment. We are not qualified to make that assessment. You have social workers who are in fact qualified to do that. And the question is, are there any social workers within the education system, or whether there are enough, whether they are visiting on a regular basis schools that are experiencing an increase in misbehavior? And the question I'm asking can be easily answered, and it is no, you don't. You don't have the necessary equipped persons to handle and to cope with something such as this, because it's not just with the child in the school, but it's also you have to attend to the home, the situations at home. If you don't address what is happening at home, then how would the child behave? Because the problem may be the home, and if the home is not dealt with, then the child goes back into the home, into the same situation. So as far as I understand, they're not dealing with that. They just do not have the social workers in place. They don't have enough.
All right. Now, she said that according to law, children below the age of 16 must be in school, which would allow for their compulsory enrollment into the MyLab program, and noting that the mandatory age of schooling for children was up to 16 years.
Yes.
Yeah, right. 16 years, and I guess at that stage, but one has to ask the question, when you look at the entire system, at the age of 11 or 12, you have the C exam, and most of us as parents, we want our children to do better than we did in our life.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress and there's a lot of pressure. And one would say that is totally unfair because, come on, at the age of 11, at the age of 12, I mean, you haven't started to even evolve. I mean, your intelligence is still in the embryonic stage as far as dealing with daily life-to-life issues.
Yeah.
And now at 16, there has to be more than just having these indicators as age and saying that, these are where the children need to be, because they're all going to develop differently. Some will excel, some will not. Some may need vocational training, some may be
Well,
academically inclined.
precisely.
Right. So, again, placing this band aid on this cancer, we will have to pay a price for it at some time.
Mikey, this government has imposed so much hardship on the people. I don't think they know how to alleviate any of the issues that are experiencing. I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand how to do it. I don't think they understand where to go. I don't think they understand anything. And you know what? What is the sad part? They're not willing to ask for help from those who are able to do it. Many years ago, when my son was kidnapped, I had and I was experiencing that same situation where the people who had kidnapped my son were young people, from what it is, his voice, he was able to say. And so at the end of the day, what I had suggested is let them, take, the parents are working, but they need to get the assistance, they need to get the help, and they may not be able to afford it because they don't want to go. They have a day job. They don't want to leave their job to be able to get help because it's very expensive. And if they leave their job for one day, they get the assistance. Guess what is going to happen? They're not going to have any salary at the end of the month. So what I suggest, they're paying NIS. Please, let the NIS begin to pay persons, who would have lost their earnings for the day. Let them go to counseling for their children, for their families, so that you could have, in the end, they will be better, equipped to handle, problems at home. If maybe they need parenting skills taught. They may need intervention in other ways, whether it is home, with domestic issues, with financial issues, all these things. And instead use it. But at that time, we had a robust NIS collection system, a contribution system. But and things could have been changed back then. A lot of things had happened back then that could have been rectified. But they did not want any advice, Mikee K. And so we have a situation on our hands where there's a crisis, and the government's intervention is we're going to just put them into MILA, and that will solve everything. It will not, because there's still situations in the home. There are economic problems in the home. There may be children who have learning disabilities, and the systems in the school does not assist in helping them learn.
Yeah, and it's not to say that the ministry does not have at its disposal methods of getting information, because one of the things they were able to share is that antisocial behavior usually began around Form 3 for secondary school students. And that says something. I mean, if you have that information, one would think that you would be able to start putting other programs in place, especially around that time of Form 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really says a lot. And I hope really and truly that we don't have to pay a price for this, because when you start talking about young people and those, future leaders, and you start creating a system where it sort of stunt them from developing and becoming the best that they can be, we as a nation, we will have to pay a price at some time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll pay the price. Listen to me. These are our future leaders, We are dealing with a generation, And I don't think that anybody is understanding this. It is not you throw them into this school and it will solve everything. It will not. We have to intervene at all levels. Every single ministry should be involved in trying to bring a result in how do we address the concern of our children, where they're going. And it's not, I say our children, and my children are all grown, but it's our children, it's my nation of Trinidad and Tobago, and whatever affects them affects me, affects you, it affects all of us. So I don't think that the minister is of like mind to think that this is our country and that it needs to get intervention. It needs social intervention, not just putting children aside assuming that, well, it either work or it don't work, because guess what? There's some children who are beyond help. You have already created an escape for yourself. And instead, you've put a number of children into a prison. And I'm not talking about a physical prison,
Yeah.
but a mental prison, an emotional prison, a physical, even a physical one, if it continues like this. And so I am of the very strong view that the minister has not thought out much. As a matter of fact, she may not even know what interventions are really in place. And so it's just a lot of fluff and bluff as that normally comes out from the government.
Okay. I want to agree with you on that, but I want to thank you so much for taking time out to link with us here this evening. It's very insightful. Best of luck to you and your entire team, and we'll be checking in with you periodically. And hopefully, good sense will prevail, because again, anytime you have a system that is going to somehow throw off or derail the development of a young mind, then we will pay the price as a country.
Absolutely. They need to speak with the principals. They need to speak with the teachers. They need to speak with the parents. They need to have a stakeholders meeting.
I agree.
And really have a genuine heart-to-heart talk. And that's if they're interested. The truth is whether they are interested.
Thanks a lot. All the best to you. Thank you so much.